Number 9. Randolph Scott. Randolph Scott was the ultimate tall, handsome cowboy, the all-American man that Hollywood loved to place in a saddle. With his rugged good looks and southern charm, Scott starred in over 100 films, many of them westerns, where he played the strong, silent type. Off-screen, he came across as a gentleman, polished, calm, and deeply private. He wasn't flashy or scandalous, and his name rarely appeared in gossip columns, which made him even more appealing to audiences of the 1930s through the 50s. But the real intrigue wasn't in what Scott said or did, it was in what he didn't say. For years, rumors swirled about Randolph Scott's relationship with fellow actor Cary Grant. The two lived together in a shared beach house in Malibu for more than a decade, and photographers even released domestic shots of them lounging in matching robes or having breakfast by the pool. Hollywood dubbed them the Bachelors, and sometimes even joked they were like a married couple. While both men denied being romantically involved, many in and outside the industry speculated that they were more than just roommates. In a time when being openly gay could destroy a career, both Grant and Scott kept things quiet, and whether their bond was romantic or deeply platonic remains one of Hollywood's most whispered about secrets. Number 8. Sal Mineo. Sal Mineo rose to fame fast and young, becoming a breakout star in Rebel Without a Cause alongside James Dean. With his boyish face and expressive eyes, he captured hearts instantly and earned an Oscar nomination at just 17. He was one of the few actors who could embody vulnerability and intensity all at once. Throughout the late 1950s and early 60s, Mineo was seen as one of Hollywood's rising young stars, especially adored by teen girls. But behind the fame was a much more complex, hidden life. As the years went on, the roles started drying up, and part of that, many believe, had to do with the swirling rumors about his sexuality. Mineo was frequently the subject of gossip, especially as he was seen less with female co-stars and more with male companions. In the conservative culture of the time, even the hint of being gay could kill a career, and unfortunately, that's exactly what started to happen to Mineo. He was typecast and later edged out of mainstream film opportunities. Behind the scenes, however, he was more open within trusted circles, living quietly as a gay man. Tragically, Sal Mineo's life was cut short when he was unalived outside his Los Angeles apartment in 1976. He was only 37. Number 7. Montgomery Clift. Montgomery Clift was one of the most talented actors of his generation, known for his emotional depth and striking good looks. He starred in films like A Place in the Sun, From Here to Eternity, and The Misfits. But while his performances were raw and real, his personal life was tightly guarded. Clift's sexuality was an open secret in Hollywood, though he never acknowledged it publicly. He had romantic relationships with men and was reportedly deeply conflicted about his identity. The pressure of hiding who he was, and of being forced into the closet by the studio system, took a toll on him emotionally and mentally. After a near-fatal car accident in 1956, Clift's life spiraled downward, and he became increasingly reclusive and dependent on drugs and alcohol. He died at just 45, with many saying he was broken by the pressures of fame and secrecy. Today, Clift is remembered not just for his heartbreaking performances, but also as a man who lived with the heavy burden of being someone the world wouldn't accept. His story is one of both immense talent and quiet tragedy. Number 6. James Dean. James Dean was a rebel, a cultural icon, and one of the most magnetic actors Hollywood ever produced. With just 3 major films, Rebel Without a Cause, East of Eden, and Giant, he became the face of a generation. But beyond his smoldering stare and tortured characters, Dean's personal life has long been the subject of speculation. Rumors about Dean's sexuality began while he was still alive. Some insiders claimed he had relationships with both men and women, while others said he used sex as a way to gain favors in Hollywood. In fact, Dean was known to be open-minded about his sexuality, once reportedly saying, "No, I am not a homosexual, but I'm also not going to go through life with one hand tied behind my back." That cryptic response only fueled more speculation. Dean died young at just 24 in a car crash that froze him in time as a tragic, beautiful mystery. Because of his early death, he never had the chance to define himself on his own terms. Today, he's remembered not only as a brilliant actor, but as a symbol of rebellion, and, possibly, of the freedom to love who you love, even in secret. Number 5. Raymond Burr. To audiences, Raymond Burr was the steely, commanding face of courtroom drama, starring as the titular role in Perry Mason. He also played the wheelchair-bound detective in Ironside, both roles that made him a television legend. With his deep voice and serious demeanor, Burr was the image of traditional masculinity. But there was a part of his life that never made it into the spotlight. Burr spent much of his career fabricating a personal life to mask his real one. He claimed to have had a wife and child who tragically died, but no such records existed. Later revelations suggested these stories were entirely made up to avoid scrutiny about his sexuality. In truth, Burr had a decades-long relationship with actor Robert Benavides, who remained by his side until Burr's death in 1993. Number 4. Anthony Perkins. Best known as Norman Bates in Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, Anthony Perkins had a career that combined intensity, mystery, and undeniable talent. He was often cast as the sensitive or slightly off-kilter young man, and he brought a unique presence to every role. But off-screen, Perkins was known to be deeply shy and incredibly private, and for good reason. Perkins was rumored to be gay for much of his life. He had close relationships with men in Hollywood, including a reported long-term affair with Tab Hunter. But he also dated women, eventually marrying photographer Barry Berenson. Many believe the marriage was a form of self-protection in an industry that would have punished him for living openly. His sexual identity was something he kept carefully hidden, fearing how it would impact his career. Despite the rumors, Perkins never publicly came out. He died of AIDS-related pneumonia in 1992, and many saw his death as part of the larger tragedy of the AIDS crisis, which had disproportionately affected closeted gay men in the entertainment world. Number 3. Tab Hunter. Tab Hunter was the blonde, blue-eyed dreamboat of the 1950s. Known for films like Damn Yankees and Battle Cry, he was the quintessential all-American boy. Studios cast him as the clean-cut, straight-arrow romantic lead, and teenage girls couldn't get enough. But while the public swooned over his on-screen romances with starlets, behind the scenes, Hunter was struggling to keep a major part of his identity under wraps. Hunter lived under the constant threat of being outed in an unforgiving era. The Hollywood press was always hungry for scandal, and he was once even arrested at a party that was quietly known as a gay gathering. His studio worked overtime to bury the incident. In public, he went on staged dates with Natalie Wood and other actresses, while privately engaging in relationships with men, including a rumored romance with fellow actor Anthony Perkins. It wasn't until decades later, in his 2005 memoir, Tab Hunter Confidential, that he finally opened up about his sexuality. His candidness was praised, and the book shed light on the immense pressure he felt to hide who he was. Number 2. Cary Grant. Cary Grant was the definition of suave. From North by Northwest to Catch a Thief, he played the kind of leading man every woman wanted, and every man wanted to be. But off-screen, Grant's life was full of complexity. Despite being married 5 times, whispers about his sexuality followed him for most of his life. The most persistent rumor centered around his relationship with fellow actor Randolph Scott. The two men lived together for years in a shared mansion, and while some dismissed it as just a bachelor pad between friends, others believed it was a genuine romance. The pair was even photographed in domestic, cozy moments that seemed too intimate to be just roommates. Studio heads were reportedly furious and tried to control the narrative, sending both actors on publicity dates with women. Grant never publicly addressed the rumors, and some believe he buried his true self in order to keep his career afloat. Whether he was gay, bisexual, or something else, the truth likely lies somewhere in the middle. Still, his story reflects just how hard Hollywood worked to maintain a certain image, and how much actors had to give up to protect it. Number 1. Rock Hudson. Rock Hudson was the ultimate Hollywood heartthrob. With his towering height, chiseled jawline, and boyish charm, he became one of the biggest movie stars of the 1950s and 60s. Films like Magnificent Obsession and Pillow Talk made him a romantic icon, especially alongside Doris Day. Women adored him, and studios marketed him as the perfect American man. But behind all the studio-fabricated romances, Hudson was living a very different reality. Rumors about Hudson's sexuality swirled for decades, but the studio system, especially Universal, worked hard to cover it up. He dated women publicly, often arranged by his publicist, to quiet the whispers. Behind closed doors, insiders say he had discreet relationships with men, and it was something of an open secret among Hollywood's inner circle. Tabloids threatened to expose him multiple times, and his management team moved quickly to quash any speculation. When Hudson was diagnosed with AIDS in the 1980s, it marked a turning point, not just in his life, but in public awareness of the disease. He died in 1985, and his passing became one of the first high-profile AIDS-related deaths.